What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Learn and Fly. This is going to be episode 2. We're going to be flying 27 Zulu again today. Here's our plane. I'll do a little bit more of an in-depth walk around on the plane today once we get inside to show all the controls a little bit better. I had it on a chest camera last time. Have a headset today. Gonna be wiring in a split microphone to the headset so you guys can hear air traffic control and also hear us while we're talking in the plane. Wind was supposed to be 3 knots. It's picked up quite a bit. I think we're still below 15, so it should be still safe to fly, but I'm pretty excited. Hopefully we get a little bit more seat time in the air today. Probably gonna have to do a battery change about halfway through this session, so we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna have Chris take over controls. Also, I have ND filters now, which are gonna slow the frame rate of the camera down, and it's gonna be a lot better for the sunlight conditions. So assuming we fly off in the same pattern, we're gonna fly over Lake Matthews. We're gonna have the sunlight directly in our eyes again, so hopefully the ND filter helps out a lot. Really excited to be back out here. This is a neat plane. Sorry if you guys can't hear me that well. There is some wind noise, so yeah, got some planes taking off. But yeah, really excited to get back out here, and quality's gonna be a lot better today, so I'm excited about that. So right here you guys can see me messing with my phone. I'm trying to use voice memos for this section to try and get it to record the headset audio. I ordered a really nice splitter for it, and you can see me trying to sync the audio right here. The splitter ended up not getting picked up on the voice memos app, so I'm going to be using a different app in the future. So for the next flight, you guys are going to be able to hear everything we do, talking to tower and all everything like that. So it'll be better on the next one, but for this one you'll have to deal with my voiceovers, which I just figured out how to do, so you'll be getting that more in the future too when I'm breaking down all the mistakes I make and any good teaching moments. Taxied to the runway. We had received clearance to taxi out to where we were. We did our pre-flight checks, and now Chris is requesting tower to give us clearance to take off. At this point, we are flying out of Chino Airport, so there's a 26 left and right. He's just informing me to make sure I stay right of 26 left. I don't want to break into their traffic pattern, so at this point we are just climbing. I'm holding 90 knots and ascending roughly 500 to 800 feet per minute. It's a bit windy out today, so it's going to be a little bit different every single day, but I'm going to be taking off and then making a left bank heading over to Lake Matthews, and I'm going to cut over to when we start doing some maneuvers, and I will explain then. I'm dropping my airspeed down into this white arc that you can see on the top left cloud gauge, and as soon as it gets into the white arc, which I believe is below 90 knots, I can start adding flaps. We're going to be working on slow flight maneuvers at this point, so I'm going up 1, 2, and 3. That's the third one. And So at this point, I'm going to start killing power. I'm going to start trying to hold my airspeed and altitude. I'm going to bring my speed down to 60 knots, and we're flying towards a certain point, and we're going to be practicing some slow flight turns. Slow flight turns are a lot different than high-speed turns. You aren't able to make as big of turns without disrupting the airplane in the air going around the wings. So you want to see that cloud gauge that's right below my airspeed, which is there's the 6-pack cluster in the middle. It's the bottom left one. That is going to be my turn coordinator, and I never want to break out of standard turn coordination, which I believe is 10-degree turns. So anything over that, you really put yourself at risk. So we're going to be practicing some turns as slow flight and also managing altitude and speed. As you can see right here, I'm making a slow banking turn. If you see that little airplane that's twisted over there, that's that turn coordinator. Really just trying to take it slow. I'm maintaining my altitude plus or minus 1,000 in the turn and trying to keep the airspeed right at 65, I believe, for this maneuver. So it's a little tricky when you're doing slow flight to manage everything. So I'm trying to keep my eyes out while checking my gauges, and I'm also still learning where all my gauges are. But I'm just taking a very slow turn, trying to keep my altitude and my speed constant while in slow flight. We're going to be recovering from slow flight, so what I'm going to do is be giving the airplane full power. I'm going to drop one notch of flaps, wait for a positive climb speed, drop another flaps, wait for positive climb speed, and then drop the full flaps. He ended up having to take control right here. There was a bunch of traffic in the Lake Matthews area today, and we had a plane flying very close over top. So on the next one, I'm going to be initiating myself, but got pulled out a little prematurely. At this point, we're going to be practicing a higher angle of turns, so he's going to want me to make 45-degree angle turns. I was a little caught off guard. I didn't realize you would feel G's in a plane this small, but I really get to struggle. I can get to about 30 on the first one. I wasn't really trusting my turns in the plane. In the next turn that he actually shows me that you can actually go way farther, so he wants me to be making turns at a 45-degree angle while maintaining speed and altitude. When you do this in these small planes, you actually feel it in your stomach. It's like you're riding a roller coaster. So I'm going to start to initiate the turn here, and then he's going to keep telling me go more, watch your gauges, get to that 45-degree mark, and I really get to like 30 on this one. On the next ones I get it. There's going to be a few better examples, but I will skip to those ones in a bit. Right here, Chris is showing an out of power stall, so when you're landing in the airplane, he's pulling up, you'll hear the stall warning light come on, and nose drops, he's stalling, power full on, wait till he's ascending, drop flaps 1 notch, and there he's done. So right here, Chris is going to be initiating power on stall. So this is what you would get if you are taking off on a plane or doing maneuvers that you don't have the airspeed for. So right here, you'll hear the star warning light come on in a second, and you're going to see turbulence on the front of the airplane, and the nose is going to start dipping down, and that's you are stalling at that point. So he dips the nose down to correct it. We're already at full power, and recover the airspeed, and then start to gain altitude again. This is going to be my attempt for the power off stall. So this will be simulating if you're coming in for a landing and you are on idle power, or if you for some reason have idle power and you stall the plane, you'll hear that idle horn. It takes a little bit longer. I'm pulling back pretty hard, but it doesn't fully stall out right away. You're going to see the nose start to dip down, regain control, full power, second ILO off, and start to gain airspeed. Alright, we're doing 1 notch of flaps right there. And we recovered. In a second, I'm going full power. I'm going to initiate a power on stall, and it's going to be just like what I showed with Chris earlier. Here, Chris is motioning to do a 360-degree turn. I'm going to be adding in power to try and hold my altitude. You'll see my nose dip down below the horizon line, which means I'm actually dropping altitude. It's really hard to hold the nose up, so you have to be turning at 45 degrees and pulling the nose up and adding power when needed to try and hold your airspeed and altitude. You can see here I pointed at the compass heading because it got a little stuck for a second, so I got a little lost. But I rolled out of the turn right here. As you can see, as soon as I rolled out of the turn, he killed my power, and he tells me where you're going to land. The first thing I did was look for a place to land, but then he corrects me and he says go through A, B, C, D, E. So the first one is airspeed. He pitched for the best glide slope, which is 73 knots for this specific airplane. B is you look for your best landing spot. I identify some dirt roads. He tells me we're too high for those, so let's shoot for the ones that are right here, also adjusting for traffic in the air. C is we go through the checklist and troubleshoot. I'm going to be checking carb heat, make sure we're reading ice over the engines, make sure the magnetos are right, make sure the fuel selector is set to, check the fuel selector, switch it over to the other tank. He asked me to simulate it right here, and go through the checklist right here for engine failure. D is to declare, so declare to the tower that you are having an engine failure and you need to land. And then E is execute, which is the hardest part and the part that you need to do well. So right here, I'm reading through the engine checklist. We have like 3,500 feet of altitude, so we're totally safe right now, and we could fly for quite a while. At this point, he's telling me to declare that we are having emergency, simulated of course, so you would squawk 7700, and I'm turning around to approach the spot that we have determined would be the best spot to land in. I'm still holding 73 knots to the best of my ability, and then you're going to see me line it up, get pretty close, and then you'll see from there. So I lined up that dirt road that we found. It was nice and straight, and got it within probably 1,500 feet or so. And he saw that I lined it up. We had a good glide slope approach, and we would have been hopefully walking away from that simulated engine failure. So at this point, we are going to go on to some other maneuvers, and I'm going to cut to that. At this point, he really wants me to dial in those high bank angle turns, so at this point I think I get it close to 45, and I'm holding the horizon a little bit better on this one, and you can really feel the G's in your stomach. It really does feel like you're riding on a roller coaster. I start to roll out of the turn, and I end on that point perfectly, exactly where I wanted to. I held air altitude roughly where I'd wanted it. I might have broken out right at the end and held my airspeed pretty well. So I was pretty happy with how that one turned out. We're going to be doing a few more of these. I'm going to cut down to where we come back in and we start doing touch and goes, because we do quite a few of these. I cut to the part where I'm coming in for the first approach. We're going to be doing a total of 6 touch and goes today. I come in a little high on all the approaches, and the winds really start to pick up here. My first landing actually ended up being the best one of the day. I think there's a little bit of fatigue that happens when you start flying for a little too long, especially as a new pilot. I definitely had some rough goes today, and I ended up on a really nice note on my first flight lesson, and it didn't really carry over. I took about a week between flight lessons here, but I'm going to be approaching this final. The first one seems to be the best. The wind starts to get into my head, and I really have to practice more of these touch and goes, and that's really going to be something that is going to be the whole purpose of the next video. As you can see, I was really getting pushed side to side by the wind. I got caught a little bit off guard. Chris actually had to help me with the throttle here. It was a little much. This is my second flight lesson, so I was balancing everything, and the winds really added another effect here. As you can see, like even as I'm taking off, I'm getting pushed off the left of the runway. So I'm gonna go break into traffic pattern here. We're gonna get up to 1,400 feet. The tower is gonna advise us to turn to make our crosswind, and then we are going to head down. Traffic controls really had a lot on their plate today. There was a lot of planes out in the sky and multiple people doing touch and goes at the same time. So the next one, you're going to see some of the mistakes that I make, but I'm going to cut to when we're on the final leg and give some notes. As you can see, we're still getting pushed all over the place. Chris even had his hands on the yoke for a second there, making sure it's not me overcorrecting. This landing wasn't too bad, pretty similar to the first one, but I'm all over the place. This time he doesn't have to touch the throttle controls, so I would say this one was actually my best landing of the day. Right here is a good learning moment. I tried to take off. I didn't put the flaps down yet. These conditions didn't call for flaps on takeoff, and the plane is going to act a lot differently and try to take off sooner. So that was just a little learning moment. When you're doing touch and goes, make sure you remember what you're doing before you try to take off. And I'm still getting pushed super far off to the left because of this wind. Should have added a little bit more rudder in right there before the takeoff, but it ended up being okay. Just making sure not to break into anyone else's space. And there's a lot of traffic out there today, so just trying to be careful. Okay, this one I am really not proud of, and believe it or not, this isn't the worst one of the day. This one is going to be a lot harder. I flared out too early. I started getting nervous because of the wind, and especially flying as a new pilot, when you're coming in for that final approach, you really get scared. You think you're going to crash into the runway, and it causes you to flare out early, but really you should be getting right to about 20 feet above the air and then flaring out. So you're going to see me come in and get a bit of a hard impact. This one was pretty similar to the last one, kind of a harder impact, and ended off a little bit to the side of the lines. You kind of want to stay directly on those white lines. Yeah, just a little bit harder of an impact. I'm trying to get them smooth. Chris decides to hop in here, show me how it's really done, and even in these rough conditions, he shows you how buttery smooth of a landing you can have. This is the type of landing I want to be having every single time, and he even practices a soft field landing, keeping that nose wheel up. Look at that precision. He kept the nose wheel up the whole time. That is exactly what I'm trying to do, even in these rough conditions. He was able to keep it directly on the center line and do a perfectly smooth landing. So that's what I'm going to be trying to emulate on the next flight session, and that's pretty much what we're going to be focusing on for the whole flight. Alright, and we cut to the worst one of the day. I should have gone around. I was losing airspeed. I flared too early. There was some mixture of stuff going on, and at this point I had realized that the flying had actually been putting a mental strain on me. I messed up. I kind of scared both of us. We didn't have to wear brown colored pants that day, but honestly, it could have been worse. I come in here, I'm starting to lose speed, I start dropping in, and then I flare out, and then you'll see right as soon as I put power in, I relieve a little pressure off the yoke because I'm used to the nose picking back up, and we do impact even though I'm doing a go around. It wasn't terrible, we walked away, no one was hurt, but it definitely could have been worse. Right there. A little bit scary moment. After that last one, I really took some time to calm my nerves throughout the traffic pattern. I was like, okay, you got this, you know what you're doing. It wasn't a great landing, definitely could have been smoother, but after that last one, I definitely needed to calm myself down because I realized that I was overloading myself and not taking the time to breathe and focus. So this last one I come in, definitely still all over the place because of the wind. Flared out just a little bit too early. It's a game between flaring out too late, you crash into the ground, or you fly out too early and then you float down and then crashing. So right here, just a little bit. Didn't really fully come off the ground, but definitely bounced just a little bit. Not great landing, but hey, we made it on the ground and nobody got hurt. But at this point, we decided to call it a day. I'm really happy to be up in the sky and learning. Definitely a little embarrassed, but you gotta put the ego aside when it comes to flying. If you have an ego out there, it's gonna get you killed. Like my flight instructor says, there's nothing punk rock about flight. If you fly and you mess around, you end up dead. And I want to come home to my family. And I love what I do. I love doing this. I'm excited to bring more content out to you guys, but definitely realize when you're getting overloaded, take a second to breathe, and especially when you're flying in conditions that you're not really used to. This is my third flight. Can't stress that enough. Alrighty. Well, that was an eventful day. I could say I wish my landings were a little better. My flight instructor was telling me I was being a little too harsh on myself. This is only my third flight and my second lesson. So there's the plane. It's a little plane. It's very stable, fun to fly. We practiced stalling as if we were taking off. We practiced power on stalls. Those I did okay. I could have been a little faster on the flaps after I put the power back in. Other than that, the crosswinds really got rough for a second there. So my landings were a little bit more rough, let's say. I was overshooting the runway, and other than that, everything went pretty well. I did have to do a go around, and like we did touch, and we probably shouldn't have touched, but I mean, I forgot that was an option. So remembering that that is an option is a good thing to do. But look at that view. It was a great day to be in the sky. Got a little rough at the end, but honestly, overall, I have a lot to learn, and I didn't realize the mental strain that it puts on you when you're flying in the air. So something I'm gonna have to work on is, he was telling me, he's like, dude, after an hour or two, that mental strain is gonna get to you. And I didn't believe him, and then I spent 2 hours in the air and did 6 landings, and yeah, it definitely gets to you. So gotta practice the mental endurance, gotta do a lot more studying, and then just gotta work on my landings. But honestly, I'm really glad with all the upgrades that we made. We got the ND filters for the camera now, so hopefully the sun wasn't directly in your guys' eyes blowing out the camera. We have the audio. I have a new headset coming in for the next flight, so audio should be even better than this one. And yeah, I'm looking forward to bringing you guys to the next one. Next one, we're just going to be working on a lot more landings. So hopefully I dial it in after this. Well, thanks. It's been fun, and I'll get to you guys next week.